minutes. Well,
Hey, for some folks, that's a long time. But
it is.
I'm not saying anything.
People that are impatient. I am an impatient person, so I can understand that.
You're an impatient person? Well, guess what,
Oh,
Tom?
yeah.
So Broncos country, and that's kind of the theme of this show. Patience and impatience. We're going to
That's
get
right.
into that here in a little bit. What is up, Broncos country? It is Wednesday night in the Mile High City, which means it is time for MHI. Luke Patterson, joined with me as always, is my good friend, football savant. He's going to calm us down. He's going to give us some positive news today. Thomas Hall. How you doing, bud?
I'm good, man. I mean, I'm feeling good. I'm a little disappointed, obviously, when it comes to the Hall of Fame, but there's a lot of people out there that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, so it's a tough job. But yeah, I'm good.
Good
Otherwise,
old Hall of Fame.
good old
We
Hall
like
of Fame.
it. We like it when our guys get in. We
Yep.
hate it when they get snubbed. And that is exactly what has happened once again today here in Broncos country. I was out at practice at Centura Health Training Center where it was another full day of pads. But forget practice. As soon as practice kicked off, we learned that Mike Shanahan did not make it into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Instead, Buddy Parker, former Detroit Lions head coach, made it into the Hall. And Thomas, before we get your reaction, I just got to tell you, Broncos country was seething up on the hill today. I looked around, as well as I do being out here at camp. It's great people watching when you come out of camp. You get to see some really cool jerseys. You get to see some cool Broncos tattoos. You see little kids running around with their family. It's a really cool thing. Not so cool to see an angry mob of Broncos country wondering why their two-time Super Bowl winning former head coach, Mike Shanahan, can't seem to make it into Canton.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I think it'll be worse. It will be way worse if Gradishar doesn't get in next week, but I think he will. So hopefully that will kind of, quell the sting of this time. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the problem, and I'm going to go right into it. The real problem started when the Hall of Fame voters misused the Centennial class. This is where it all started. They force-fed us Bill Cowher and Jimmy Johnson way too early. That Centennial class was supposed to be for these old-timers that haven't gotten in a long time. Then, I mean, if they had done it right to begin with, they messed up on four of those, at least four, probably five of those Hall of Famers in that class, which has perpetuated this now interesting development, right? Right now, we should be talking about Bill Cowher versus Mike Shanahan, not Buddy Parker versus Mike Shanahan. And now I'm going to be the first one to say Buddy Parker deserves it. Go, if you don't know who Buddy Parker is, do a little research.
And no one does. I'm gonna interrupt you right there. No one does. And I mean no disrespect. And I want you to tell us, and I want you to tell me who Buddy Parker is, because I don't mean any disrespect to the man, rest his soul, his family. What an accomplishment. Mike Shanahan. I mean, talk about a class act. Mike Shanahan's quoted today as saying, "It's an honor to be nominated for the NFL Hall of Fame and be part of the final selection. I would like to congratulate the family and friends of Buddy Parker." All due respect, who in the hell is Buddy Parker? And this is my bone with the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Tom. They wait too long to get these guys in. If you're not going to do it for them, do it for their families. And case in point, Mr. Bolin, rest his soul. It just absolutely makes me sick when I see a man like Jerry Jones make it in before Pat Bolin while the guy was still alive. So, I'm not trying to take a dump all over Buddy Parker in this prestigious honor, but being born in 1991, Tom, I don't know who this man is. So I'm extra pissed off. If I knew who he was, I'd still be mad. But when I don't know who he is, it's a crying shame, not only for Buddy Parker, but also for Mike Shanahan.
Well, I'll tell you, that is the big problem right now. There's a couple problems. Number one, people have forgotten. Even many of the voters don't know who some of these old time guys are, right? These are people that were from the pre-modern era for the most part, really. They're kind of forgotten about. So there is a need to get those in, because if you think about it, the Hall of Fame started in the 60s, right? But the NFL started way longer ago, right? The 1920s basically, but even before that, there was remnants of it. So there's this huge gap of these old timers that need to get in. Buddy Parker, a couple championships, just like Mike Shanahan. He is innovative. There's a few things
in
that
Detroit,
he's done.
A couple championships in Detroit.
I mean, like back in the day,
really?
But the last time they actually won a playoff game was 1957, which they won the championship. So it's been the Lions have been suffering for a long time, but a lot of old timers haven't had their due. And this is the bone that I have to pick with. I do have a bone to pick with the Hall of Fame. Now, from 2017 to now, there's really not a huge argument that fans of the Broncos have. We've gotten Terrell Davis, Pat Bowlen, Champ Bailey, Steve Atwater in the Hall in the last 8 years, maybe Gradishar in the last 8 years. That's 5 in 8 years. That's pretty freaking good. The problem is they've ignored
DeMarcus Ware.
Yeah, if you want to, I mean, I count him as a Cowboy.
Look at his locker. Look at his locker. Social media, right? You don't see silver and blue.
I mean, you can point to him, but my problem is just like the old timers that they've forgotten about. They've ignored the Broncos. This is the bone to pick. If you want to have a bone to pick with the Hall of Fame, it's that they ignored the Broncos for so long. A team that went to Super Bowl in the 70s. 3 in the 80s, and then a couple more in the 90s, had one Hall of Famer in 2004, and that was John Elway. That's the bone to pick. Mm-hmm. You need to talk to them and pressure them into opening up more senior candidates for the Hall of Fame, because there are a ton of Broncos that are just sitting there waiting. That's the problem. Recently, they have not been ignoring the Broncos, I'll tell you that. Now, I was disappointed that Shanahan didn't get in. I think Shanahan has a better resume than Buddy Parker, but I do understand that Buddy Parker also has a spot in the Hall of Fame. So it's a matter of opinion at that point. Like, should we put in Buddy Parker? Should we put in? I mean, if you think about it, it's a matter of opinion. But I was
Mike Shanahan is 70 years old. Buddy Parker died at age 68 in 1982. I mean, that is kind of furthering the point you and I are trying to make here, that like, timing matters, especially in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, because some of these cats, I don't think I'm telling any tales out of school when I say they're a little long in the tooth. And it's a crying shame, and we're going to continue to get into it. But I got to get to our guy Troy, who was in here, very first Super Chat superstar, coming in hot before the show even started, saying, "Hey guys, have a great show. I'm going to listen later. I hope the Snubs and the Russell Wilson bashing make a great season all the sweeter." And Troy, Thomas was just echoing this very same attitude, sentiment, whatever you want to call it. Maybe Gradishar gets in this week and we feel a lot better. Maybe Russell Wilson and the Broncos play fantastic football and play winning football this year and we feel a lot better. All of those things can definitely make us feel better. But when Broncos country's out there sweating in the record degree heat today in the Mile High City, this was the last thing that they needed plopped onto their plate as we watched second consecutive day full of pads. So Troy, I hear you, man. It's frustrating, but I like your attitude. And I think Thomas is definitely trying to represent that and be a little level-headed here, because I'm not. I'm hot. I'm upset. And I am here for all of it. So we want to hear from you, Broncos country, just like our guy, Michael Rinkia. What's up, Big Mike? I was talking to Mike last night. Michael saying, "Good evening, Thomas and Luke on the Mile High Insiders. Go Broncos and Buckham." And Michael, I was thinking of you a lot during that Arizona Cardinals game. I know you and Ron got to react to that game, but here we go, baby. Preseason game number 2 on Saturday against the San Francisco 49ers. Some guy named Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch. Yeah, their team, Trey Lance, things like that. They're interesting storylines for the 49ers and the Denver Broncos. So I can't wait for preseason game number 2. I'm shocked I'm saying that, but I do want to let you guys know Orange and Blue View with Thomas Hall and Ron White are going to be doing a special show at 6:30 p.m. Mountain on Saturday night. Try to get you 5:30. Is it 5:30? Did I screw that up? 5:30 p.m. Mountain pregame show as they get you ready, Ron and Thomas Hall, for the Niners game. So stay tuned on Saturday. And while we're plugging, let's plug away, Thomas, because you've got a very special Friday morning show that you and I were talking about before we jumped on MHI. Tell us a little bit about some special cat that's going to be joining you on Friday morning.
Absolutely. Yeah. Friday morning, Legends of Mile High. We have a Broncos legend coming on. Arguably the best right tackle in all of Broncos history. Ken Lanier is coming on the show. He's going to answer some questions, give us some knowledge on past Broncos, and also hopefully some info on what it's like to be injured as an offensive tackle, because there's some injuries that are out there right now. So for the Broncos current day.
Oh God, yeah. Can he fix the offensive tackles right now? Because we'll get into it a little later here in the show, but it's in my notes. I've got break glass, SOS, emergency. Things are bad at the offensive tackle position, and I have no problem calling Garrett Bowles out on a lot of that. Now, I know he's a veteran player. I know he's coming off of a broken bone. I just broke my arm a year ago. I get it. It's a long recovery. I can only imagine playing offensive line in the NFL, but it's my responsibility to give it to you guys like I see it out at camp every day, and that's exactly what we want to do. Just like our guy Dylan Von Arks doing what he has to do over at milehighhuddle.com. Be sure to check out all of Dylan's work. The man is tireless in bringing Broncos coverage. Sup, Broncos country? Make sure you hit that like button on the way in. Please share on all platforms and subscribe if you have not done so already. And Thomas and I are talking training camp. We're talking Mike Shanahan snubbed from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I mentioned it just a little bit ago, Thomas. I mean, 70 years old. Mike is 70 years old. And I know we love our childhood heroes. Just to tip my cap for Mike Shanahan to live forever, right? They're immortalized. But that's not the case. They're all human beings as well. And I would just really, really be disgusted to not see Mike make it in at the appropriate time. Now, Mike's a very healthy human being. I don't know anything that nobody else knows or anything like that, but I know what it would mean for this fan base. I know what it would mean for Kyle. I know what it would mean for so many coaching trees in the NFL. I was talking to my wife about this before I even hopped on the show. I mean, for crying out loud, the coaching tree of Mike Shanahan is everywhere, from San Francisco to Minnesota and everything in Cincinnati, everything in between. Shanahan's fingerprints are all over the NFL here in 2023.
Well, I'll tell you a couple things. So first of all, when they're inducted after they've passed, they don't get the gold jacket. Their family doesn't get the gold jacket. So, I mean, that's a symbol.
Interesting.
That's a symbol of being
know that.
in the Hall of Fame. Yes, they don't get one. So, when Pat Bowlen went in, his family didn't get a gold jacket. And that, that's a big deal. I mean, to be represented in the Hall of Fame, but also that's a symbol, right? So that's a bummer. The other bummer really is the fact that in 2020, they put Bill Cowher in to the Hall of Fame. And if you look at their resumes side by side, Shanahan's the better coach. Now, I know he had a bit of a struggle in Washington, but every coach that goes to Washington struggles, right? He got into the playoffs, which was pretty good for Washington.
I wanted to ask you about that just real quick. Is he being punished for Washington? I mean, that's the only thing I could think of. Like, is it just you should have stayed in Denver? You should have rode off into the sunset. You had success in San Fran. You had success in Denver. We're not going to look at that skid mark that was the Raiders because they're just a continued skid mark.
But set up for fail.
But I mean, come on, man. I mean, is it this the Washington thing? I mean, talk to me, Thomas. I can't figure it out. Why?
I think that does hurt him going to Washington and not being able to recreate more success, but he did get to the playoffs. He got the playoffs. So, he had some success there, but I think that plays into it a little bit. But now that you look at the fact that it's not just coach, right? It's coach slash contributor. So you combine those two things. This is why the Air Coryell got in, because he wasn't getting in as a coach because he didn't have the record. He didn't have the championships. He didn't have that. But as a coach contributor, his contributes what he contributed to the offense that we know today got him into the Hall of Fame. You look at Shanahan, he's the same thing. He has a way better record as a coach and a way better, championship pedigree as a coach than Air Coryell. But you also have to look at what he did with the West Coast offense. He tweaked it a little bit. It's still, it changed schemes. And then the zone blocking scheme, it revolutionized the running game. So you have to take that into account. And the reason it kind of boggles my mind. And now Buddy Parker has some of the same, what I would say, the same type of things on his resume. But Shanahan should get in sooner rather than later because it's coach contributor. He has both of them nailed. Some coaches, they're good coaches, but they didn't change the game. Shanahan did. And that's why I think Shanahan's going to get in. I think it might be as early as next year, right? The next cycle he might get in.
Well, let's hope so. I mean, let's be honest. Mike was also a GM. He was a GM, head coach. He was everything he needed to be. And I'm tired of him not getting that recognition. But speaking of recognition, Jasmine with a very generous 1999 super chat. Thank you so much, Jasmine. Your generosity really helps us continue to grow and keep the lights on here at MHH, specifically this show on Wednesday nights. Jasmine weighing in saying, I'm looking forward to the game to see if there's been any progress with the offense. Great show, guys. And Jasmine, I'm with you here, okay? Because I'm trying to I overreact with Mike Shanahan, but I'm not overreacting with this Broncos offense right now. Offensive tackle is a concern. It's my biggest concern on this football team. And don't talk to me about the kicker. I'm still worried about it. But what keeps me up at night and what should keep Russell Wilson up at night is that left side of the line, specifically with Garrett Bowles. However, we are not seeing all of Sean Payton's offense. I wrote about it yesterday at milehighhuddle.com in yesterday's camp observations. And there's some sleight of hand going on right now all over the NFL. And you know what's going on with Sean Payton. Sean Payton is going to have a commitment to running the football. It's one of the reasons why Michael Burton has been one of the biggest stars in training camp. That's right, Michael Burton. Don't know who he is? That's okay. He's a fullback coming over from the Kansas City Chiefs. That's right. I said fullback. You look at these other tight ends, right? You've talked about him. You've wrote him up at at milehighhuddle.com. Adam Troutman, man. Broncos country, get used to this guy. There's a reason Sean Payton traded for this man. He's an unsuspecting pass catcher who dominated. I'm talking dominated practice today. He's pulling down red zone touchdowns, one-handed catches. I mean, defenses aren't going to be looking for Adam Troutman if Greg Dulcich and Adam Troutman are both on the field. So, Jasmine, I hear you. There's frustration because Broncos country doesn't have patience, and you shouldn't have patience. We've been telling you this next year's going to be it for coming on 10 years now, folks. I mean, the 10-year anniversary from 2015 is coming up in just a couple of seasons. So I understand Broncos country not having any patience, but then again, it's preseason where patience is forced down our throats. So I say to you, Jasmine, hang in there. I think you're going to see some improvements. Why? Javonte Williams is checking into the game, baby. And I wrote about him today over at milehighhuddle.com. This man is aching to be turned loose, Thomas. You saw it out there at training camp with me. He's being monitored, but he looks fantastic.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the running game can't really get going. And thank you, Jasmine. Appreciate that that generous super chat. The running game can't get going in preseason because the offense doesn't play that much, right? So they go out, they run a bit. And I know there's studies out there that say that running game doesn't impact it, but I actually did a study and I can go back and find it. It's on Mile High Huddle. I wrote it up, talked about it on Twitter. I looked at the number of carries that somebody can get, a running back gets, and what the impact has on the game. And it actually does have an impact on the game, the number of carries. So when the offense starts for real in the regular season, you're going to see the running game impact what the offenses does more significantly than you'll ever see it in preseason. Ever. So I would hold out back judgment a little bit until you see it in real live games. Because, I mean, think about it. The starters play for a few snaps and then they're on the bench. And then it's they come in with some other things and they try a bunch of different stuff. So the running game is going to be way more impactful than we're seeing in preseason. So just wait and see what happens in the regular season. You're on mute.
Just wait, guys. Just wait. I'm telling you, it is coming. Samaje Perine is coming. Broncos country is going to fall in love with this man. I know he doesn't say he does anything special. He's been one of the most consistent players of camp. He's a no-nonsense north-south runner. Complements Javonte Williams very well. They're very similar. Javonte's got a more explosive athletic element to his game, no doubt. But Samaje Perine, Cincinnati Bengals are going to be missing this cat for a long time. Just real quick regarding the Arizona Cardinals game, I appreciate the fact that Sean Payton is challenging Russell Wilson and Jerry Jeudy. I'm seeing drops out there at camp. I mean, it's not like Jerry Jeudy's catching every single ball, but after every drop, Russell Wilson's going back to him for a huge chunk, a huge gain. That is truly building chemistry. We're witnessing it. And when you see it for a great touchdown, fantastic. So a couple silver linings, right? And I don't like to live in the past of preseason game number 1, but I just had to get that in there. Jasmine, appreciate your support. Phil McLaughlin, my guy. What's up, Phil? Appreciate your support. I know Thomas does as well here on MHI. Good evening, Thomas and Luke. Garrett Bowles plays bad again this weekend. Will Cam Fleming take his spot as the starter? Shame to the Hall of Fame. Hashtag Buckham. Go Broncos. Yeah, I don't think so. Cam Fleming, for as bad as Garrett Bowles looks, Cam Fleming does not bring anything positive to the table in terms of an improvement. Now, that's not to say Garrett Bowles can't turn it on. That's not to say Cam Fleming won't start and will do horrible. I think you can disguise a lot of things in the running game. However, I'm concerned, Tom. I'm pouring through the free agent tracker trying to figure out, is there a guy we can bring in? And Michael Schofield's out there. I don't want him back. Jawan James is back out there. I don't need him back. Taylor Lewan, I'm pretty sure he's lost like 100 pounds doing podcasts. Eric Fisher, no thank you. So the market for offensive tackle is really tough. Sean Payton's going out there spitting into the microphone and giving his history of trading for Will Lutz and saying we might still be in on another kicker. How about trading for an offensive tackle? Because the depth, let alone the starter, good Lord, Phil, I'm worried.
Yeah, if Cam Fleming, from what I and you saw at camp, if Cam Fleming has to come in, it's dire, right? It's not good. It's like I said on Twitter the other day. If someone was mentioning Stidham, if when's he going to take over starting? If Stidham comes in, they're probably not going to win another game the rest of the year. So I'm not quite that bad with Cam Fleming, but it's getting there. Cam Fleming did not look very good. Garrett Bowles didn't look very good. And frankly, McGlinchey didn't look that great either when he was out there. So there is a problem at offensive tackle. I hope it can get fixed, but I don't want to see them overreact and throw Cam Fleming out there just to get beat, because either one, Bowles and Fleming aren't performing very well. So yeah, if he does take his spot at the starter, it's probably because he got injured. Bowles got injured, and that would be a bad thing.
That would be a bad thing. The Broncos have got to figure it out. And I just look at it like, what better time than now to figure it out with the San Francisco 49ers? I don't think Bosa's going to be out there, right? He's still holding in or holding out or whatever the hell it is that they do these days. But this is a San Francisco 49ers defense that is no nonsense. They're not going to be pushed around. They're a championship caliber defense. It's going to be a fantastic test against this offensive line. And then just a week later, you've got the Los Angeles Rams and some guy named Aaron Donald coming into town. And I see out there today, right? I think Cam Akers and Max Crosby got into it. Like, I give a rip. If a running back is fighting your pass rusher, you've got big problems. I'm wondering where the O-linemen are in that whole mix. Probably on the ground, because Max Crosby absolutely wrecks everybody. And I hate to say that because he's a Raider, but he definitely is keeping me up at night already, Tom. And I can only wonder what Garrett Bowles could be thinking. Look at our guy, David, man. I love David. David comes in. Was just chatting with David the other day, too. Hope you're doing well, brother. Thank you so much for all of your support. A generous $10. David weighing in saying, good evening, Broncos country. Luke, Tom, Dylan, and Deegan Scott. Enjoy preseason. Never forget, hashtag 12-5, hashtag MHH for life, Buckham, and Denver Broncos for life. 12-5, David has called his shot long ago. It's quickly coming upon the time where we all make our predictions over at milehighhuddle.com. That's usually right during Labor Day weekend, if I'm not mistaken, before the regular season kicks off. And we're going to have a little bit more realistic view of what the Broncos look like then. They did some business today, Tom. It looks like they signed a new running back.
Dwayne Washington, I think, if I remember correctly. Someone had been at the Saints. In Washington, I think. Dwayne Washington, played for Sean Payton 4 years with New Orleans. The Broncos did waive injured defensive tackle Forrest Morrell to make way for that camp add-on. And then they added a wideout this week too, Tom. Trying to get through my roster, and it's hard because, as you know, they don't give updated rosters every single day to media or fans out there. But Sean Payton is proving that he will continue to add players. I just can't figure out why he's not adding any offensive linemen. I get it's tough to find them, but I think if you truly want some depth, you're going to have to look at trading
for maybe a backup. I don't know if there's a disgruntled starter that's overpaid on 1 year left on his deal that maybe you could try to get for peanuts or something like that. But I scratch my head a little, and I like Sean Payton. I wanted him here. He was my number one coach, but these new guys coming in, new long snapper, right? Releasing kickers to get new long snappers in. And I'm just wondering, what are we going to do at OT?
Yeah. I will just say the one thing about offensive line is it does take a little while to come together. Maybe that's part of it. I don't want to chalk it up to that. I don't want to make excuses, but they haven't played together that much, with injuries and the vet
they're
time
pretty healthy.
and all of that. But it would be nice to see them all play together for an extended period and see how they do. But you're right. I'm not sold on Cam Fleming. I do like that he has versatility. I definitely am not sold on Isaiah Prince. I have not seen anything out of him that makes me think that he is the answer at backup. So there's some issues. If someone goes down, there's issues. And then there's issues with the starters as well.
I'd rather see your guy Alex Palzeski, in at right tackle. And I'll say this, speaking of offensive tackles, Quinn Bailey got a look today. I texted you that right on my way home from camp. I mean, it was pretty surprising. I think Big 75 is Quinn Bailey out there on the right-hand side. He was getting reps today and getting looks. So it tells me Sean is concerned too when you see some pretty drastic moves like that going with the ones, just trying to figure it out. But that's been Sean Payton's theme all of camp. Ones versus ones, ones with twos. There have been ones with threes. At a certain time today, again, you had ones and threes out there in team unit. I couldn't believe it. I was a little upset. I was worried. Javonte Williams is the starting running back. He was taking reps today with some lesser units. And it's like, what are we doing here? I thought we were so afraid that he was going to get broken and everything else. Javonte's going to be fine, folks. And to the folks that are scared to death of Javonte getting hurt again, we can't control that. That's something he can't control that either. And he's a running back. As harsh as it sounds, they're a dime a dozen. And there will always be another running back coming out in the NFL draft. And this is coming from a man who loves Javonte Williams. I was pining for him coming out of that NFL draft in North Carolina. So I think this look, he's a big boy. He's tough in Broncos country. They're going to get a healthy dose of him. So stay tuned. Jasmine coming in again. Thank you so much, Jasmine. I hope you and your family are having a great rest of your summer. It's an awesome picture you've got with your little one there. They say enjoy it, Tom, because as you know, it goes quickly. We're always talking about our families before the show. And here we are, school, fall. Pretty soon it's going to be the holidays. Enjoy every second you can with your family, just like Jasmine and her great, beautiful picture. And she's saying, great to hear that Alex T is making great plays. Excuse me. It sounds like we will have a decent season. Remind me of who our wide receiver one is at this time. That would be an interesting question, Jasmine, because it all depends on what you consider wide receiver one. For me, wide receiver one means priority, top target, first read, and that is unquestionably Jerry Jeudy. Now, Courtland Sutton has been playing like the wide receiver number one when it comes to impact plays, highlight reel catches. It's just they're different receivers, right? You're talking about one who's big-bodied and powerful and the other who's shifty as hell and brings a whole new level of athleticism to the game. And Tom, I want to give you your due because I told you right before training camp I was worried about Jerry Jeudy. He's never scored double-digit touchdowns. He's, a lot of talk. When is it going to be Jerry's time? I'm starting to see it here in training camp. This man is putting together some good days. Now, and they're not perfect. There have been drops, just like I reported, but Jasmine, make no mistake about it. This offense is predicated on simple high-low reads. Russell Wilson needs to get the ball out as quick as he can. You're going to see that coached this weekend against the San Francisco 49ers, even with Jarrett Stidham and Ben DiNucci. That's why Jarrett Stidham is driving me crazy. He holds onto the ball way too long. We have no idea where it's going to go. Sean Payton's offense, it's the fast and the furious, baby. I wrote about it day one at milehighhuddle.com. And look, I like that style because it keeps defenses guessing. Now, the offense had damn well better know their homework and had better be in the iPad, the playbook, what have you. But for me right now, Tom, wide receiver one, that's Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with you on that. He does seem like he's going to be the emphasis. But if you think about if you kind of think about it, like who gets the most catches and the most yards, that type of thing, as wide receiver one. I mean, there's depending on how you want to do it. I still think that Courtland Sutton is actually going to come out ahead this year with more receptions, more yards, and more touchdowns than Jerry Jeudy for a couple reasons. One, he is like a man on fire out there. He is ready to go out and compete. Like, he seems like he has that same mentality he had when we all thought he was going to be an all-pro, right? We saw the trajectory.
2019.
Yep. He looked really good, got injured. And it takes a while to get your confidence back from injury. It just does.
Yes. Thank you. You just said it. He was wearing Garrett Bowles' knee brace out there. That's not happening, Tom. You're exactly right. He's finally got confidence back. And part of it's not having that damn offensive line knee brace on his leg.
And the second one, if you look at Sean Payton's offense of the past, almost every time the leading receiver was that big, strong, go get the football type receiver. You got Colston, you got Thomas, almost every one of those. When you look at receivers, that was the guy that got the bulk of the yards, the bulk of the receptions, the bulk of the touchdowns. And that's what I see Courtland Sutton. He's going to take that role. And if he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be the leading receiver. Whether or not he's wide receiver one or not, that's a debate.
Look, the only bone I have to pick with Courtland Sutton is in that last game with the Arizona Cardinals, and I tweeted this out there. You could follow it at Luke Patterson LP. JT O'Sullivan, right? My guy. I love the QB school. I can't get enough of it, man. I learned so much from that guy. I encourage everybody to go look at JT O'Sullivan's channel. But Courtland Sutton quit on one of those routes. It was specifically a 3rd and 7 versus cover 0. Now, that, if you remember, Broncos country looked like an absolute overthrown ball on, I forget the route, but Courtland just stopped running. And it's like, bro, that one wasn't on Russ. There was obviously a miscommunication between quarterback and receiver, but that's what's cleaning up these mistakes is all about. I mean, preseason football, that's the definition. This is when we clean those things up. And Courtland's a baller. So just like you're saying, man, I would definitely agree with you. He's going to have more yards. He'll probably have more touchdowns. But I think when it comes to the nitty gritty of catches, man, I think Jerry Jeudy might have more receptions just because he's going to be that number one read underneath. And Stu McPeak, man, you've been very patient. I was just reaching out to Stu the other day. I hope you and your family are doing well, finishing up summer. Stu's been with us since the beginning here on MHI. Looking forward to seeing a good running game. Only concern, can the offensive line hold up? Stu wrote about Quinn Miners today over at milehighhuddle.com in my training camp journal. And a lot of people don't realize, we talk about quarterback turnover. We talk about coaching turnover. This is the 3rd offense in 3 years for Quinn Miners, a guy who was Division III, Wisconsin Whitewater, teaching himself the center position. I know. He doesn't play center here with the Broncos, right guard. But, man, that's a lot of learning for a young man, I think 25 years old, and he's being asked to do a lot. Now, speaking of a lot, he put on a lot of weight, 15 to 20 pounds. Russ talked about it today. He's playing at like 340, and he's all muscle. It's not sloppy weight. I like Quinn Miners a lot in this run game, Stu. I love it. I'm seeing some improved technique and pass protection, but good Lord, Jonathan Harris got after him the other day. And you still have to clean some things up when it comes to that interior O-line with Lloyd Cushenberry, who's had a very good camp. Quinn Miners and new guy Ben Powers, but I like the interior offensive line right now. Today, they were absolute road graders for our guy, Jaleel McLaughlin. Yes, Jaleel McLaughlin, the same guy that Thomas and I have been writing about ad nauseum over at milehighhuddle.com. I don't want to hear about Tyler Batty, who got hurt, by the way, today and watched the rest of practice, while Jaleel McLaughlin shaking guys. He's taking contact. I mean, you can't get this guy out of the game. So watch out for Jaleel McLaughlin coming to a 53-man roster near you.
Absolutely. I actually, I think Quinn Miners, we all knew he had to develop. So he's still developing, right? He's still developing. It's only 3 years, but he's a small school. He didn't have a ton of experience. He didn't have wasn't in the Big Ten where, people get more NFL ready type snaps. So he's, and like you said, not only did he have to change schemes and coaches, he had to change his body. He lowered his weight to play in a more quick scheme with the zone blocking, wide zone. So he's had this up and down, and all this while he's still starting, still playing well. I loved watching him. I loved it when he was out there, when Javonte Williams is fighting yards and Miners is out there ramming into people and pushing the pile. No quit in the guy. So I'm excited for his progress over the next couple of years. I think he can be. I think the sky's the limit for him. I think he can be a really good guard.
I co-sign that 100%. It was a real joy to see him, Jonathan Cooper, and Baron Browning drafted after I picked all those guys at the Senior Bowl. I was boots on the ground for MHH like I am every year. And to see 3 guys that you picked for the Broncos end up on the squad and hopefully have a future, that's always exciting. Just like Phil McLaughlin, man, always exciting coming in here, giving us all kinds of love and support here on MHI. After listening to Peyton, I think he's hiding Greg Dulcich until the regular season. Peyton said, quote, Dulcich's role would evolve as the season progresses, end quote. I've got a feeling we will see a completely different offense against the Raiders. Phil, it's so funny you say that because I was having some conversations with some fans today on the Hill, some media members on the Hill, some friends of ours on MHI, Tom, and an interesting theory came up that I don't think would shock anybody. What about Greg Dulcich as a receiver in the slot? That sure takes away the whole blocking element that he's getting eviscerated for. Today, he was horrible. Absolutely horrible. In blocking against the Cardinals, he was absolutely horrible. He's not a blocker, period. That's not to say that he shouldn't try to improve, and I think he's trying. But look, man, sometimes a zebra is a zebra. They've got their stripes, and you can't give them spots. Maybe that's the case with Greg Dulcich, and like Phil's suggesting, Sean Payton's sleight of hand, maybe you see a more receiver-like role for Greg Dulcich in this offense.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as far as hiding him with how they're going to use him in the offense, absolutely. I think they are. I think they've got bigger plans. You're seeing a vanilla offense, and it was strange to watch a non-vanilla defense going like crazy after, rushing everybody after their offense in preseason. I was like, why are they doing that? That seems strange. But yeah, I think you're going to see a different use of a lot of players, and Dulcich being one of them. And I think you're right on the offense going to be different from that we're seeing in preseason. When you come out week 1, you're going to see definitely some different wrinkles. And like I said earlier, you're going to see a more potent running game, something that really predicates the offense in general. The running game is going to be what sets up a lot of this stuff on the offense. And you're not able to see it in preseason. Like I said, you're pulling people out right away and putting in second, then third teamers, and there's no consistency. There's no building that run game over time, over attrition to like wear out the defense. And I know people say, it doesn't wear out the defense. If you're pounding the rock at somebody in the running game, play in, play out, that has an effect on the defense.
Whoever says that's an idiot and they don't know football, and I'll tell it to them on Twitter, on their face, on these very airwaves. If you don't think that running the football is an effective way to wear a defense, let alone win a football game, you just don't know this game. Now, I know that PFF and certain analysts will come out there, and Tom, you know better than I do. I mean, you've designed systems for football analysis, for crying out loud. But it can intimidate a casual fan or even some of those in the media, right? I see it. And guys and gals will pretend they know what it is and pretend that it's the end all be all. And let's look at charts and graphs and throw all this stuff out. And that'll surely give us the credentials to talk about football. That's not the case, guys. Look, we're not rocket scientists out here. We're playing football. These guys are playing football. And that's not to say this isn't complex. That's not to say that it's not difficult. But Sean Payton is going to run the ball. If you don't believe me, maybe you believe Russell Wilson, who talked about it today at the podium as well. I mean, he's covering a little bit for his big guys, and there's never a hard question asked out there at camp. It drives me absolutely crazy, but he was covering for Garrett a little bit when they're like, how you feel about Garrett? And he's like, I love Garrett. Garrett's playing great. I feel the momentum. And then he went through, Tom, every single member of the offensive line, gave them a compliment, shouted them out by name, and it was all based on the run game. Now, Garrett Bowles, the run blocker, I like it a lot. He's very athletic. He can climb to the second level. Now we're talking. That's when that camouflage comes in, and you try to camouflage some of those weaknesses. Sean Payton's going to run this football. He just doesn't want you to get his looks right now. He doesn't want you to know the personnel. He doesn't want you to know when he wants to do it. He doesn't want any sort of script out there. It's one of the reasons why it's been so damn hard to report about training camp, if I'm being honest. I can't share the normal videos that I usually do, the normal tweets that I normally do. I've already got in trouble week 1 doing that kind of thing. It's just a different vibe. It's a different era out at Centura Health Training Center, and we almost have to trust our gut and let Sean Payton operate and figure it out into the regular season.
Well, analytics aren't going to tell you the story of a man pushing another man against his will and what that has an effect on their psyche. If they go out and they push those defensive linemen around and run the ball down their throat when they want to, that has an effect, not just physically, but mentally, you know? So it's hard to measure those type of things over a long period of time. That gets lost in analytics. I'm an analyst. I know, but I also am a football guy, football player, football coach. I know that there's other things that you need to look at as well. So when the live fire is happening, the real snaps, and if this offensive line can manhandle a defensive line, that is going to change the entire outlook of that game. And if the defense can step up and stop them a few times, then you're going to see some wins stacked together.
Well, and running the ball is all about attitude. And last time I checked, Sean Payton has plenty of both, running the ball and attitude. He's a salty guy. It's one of the reasons guys and gals can't stand him. Fans, the league. I absolutely love it. This team needs a little bit of piss and vinegar. I'm tired of everyone's great. Orange slices, sunshines and rainbows, no 1-on-1s, no 7-on-7s. And what a joke the New York Jets are. I'm just calling it right now. They're an absolute joke. Don't let this Dalvin Cook signing or any of this HBO Hard Knocks make you think that the New York Jets are somehow going to all of a sudden transform into perennial contenders. I'm telling you, it's not going to happen. What is going to happen is I'm going to give our guy, Gary Leeds Palmer, a very generous shout out because he gives us a generous shout out every single night on MHH and every Wednesday night here on MHI. Hi, Thomas, Luke, and Scott. I'm excited to see the growth from week 1. Go Broncos and buck 'em. And I love it, Gary, because that's what Broncos country is looking for. It's very cool when you see fans out there taking notes, just looking to see something. They're thirsty, right? They're trying to get that thirst quenched. Any drop. It could be a raindrop. It could be a bottle of Gatorade. We want something. We're looking for signs. The problem with that, folks, and it frustrates me too, it's hard to find signs in the preseason and training camp when everyone, specifically this franchise, is so paranoid about losing a competitive advantage by giving away any sort of information. Tom, we talked about it out there when you were with me at camp. I mean, it's a ticketed event, right? 3,000 fans per day. How do we know that there aren't some pro scouts and get from other teams to look at training camp? I mean, these are things I'm telling you that Sean Payton has already implemented. He's already thought about. I mean, it's Mike Shanahan. We're talking about Mike Shanahan getting snubbed. It's Mike Shanahan level stuff. It's Mike Shanahan level control. It's Mike Shanahan level competitiveness. And I love it. Any Given Sunday, one of my favorite football movies of all time with Dennis Quaid, Jamie Foxx, and Al Pacino. The whole scenes, all those scenes in the movies of the locker room being recorded and team moles and stuff like that. That stuff kind of came from the Denver Broncos, who consulted specifically with Mike Shanahan during that movie. So I'm not saying that Sean Payton's spying on guys in the locker room. I'm saying that he's willing to go to any lengths necessary to keep a competitive edge, even if that means preseason and training camp looks a little frustrating.
Well, winning is the most important thing to him, pretty much. I mean, you can see, the past, look at the past and see what has happened and what he's done in order to win. So I'm with you. He doesn't want to give anything away. And, really the preseason, if you're a fan that wants to see wins, you're looking at the wrong thing. I think I remember there were seasons where Peyton Manning and his team in Indianapolis, didn't win a preseason game and then went out and won 14 games. I mean, it's almost that drastic. But what you do look for is individual plays, individual players, and see how the team is kind of melding together. That's the important part. Really, preseason after this week, the final week is going to be all about those roster bubble guys, whether they make it or not. And they're not going to care about the win. I mean, they may in their mind oh yeah, we lost. Oh, well, but they're going to care more about the evaluation. If you're going out and you're trying to win 3-0 in the preseason, you're going about it the wrong way. So,
well, and 100%. And one thing that I would echo and piggyback just off of that, I liked that when you saw the post-game coverage of the Broncos walking into the tunnel, none of them were smiling and laughing. They all looked a little pissed off that they lost that preseason game. And that was a new, subtle change. It's not the most important thing ever. I'm sure those guys couldn't wait to get back to Denver and have an off day. But last year, we're looking at Melvin Gordon yucking it up on the sidelines, dropping, fumbling the football, not giving a gee whiz with Jerry Jeudy. And that kind of energy is infectious. And you know what's also infectious? Positive energy. I mean, Sean said what he wanted to see and what he didn't want to see. We didn't see the Gilligan hats. We didn't see the sideline interviews. We didn't see the sunflower seeds. You know, just those simple things are just small indicators that should give this fan base a little bit of hope. Speaking of hope, our guy Derek's coming in here, hoping to show us some love and give us some support. Thank you so much for joining Tom and I on your Wednesday night, Derek. What did Mike Shanahan do to deserve this? You look at this list of this year's coaches and contributors, and Mike Shanahan's name leaps off of the page. He changed the game forever, but Bill Cowher goes in right away. What's up with that? And Derek, that's exactly right, man. We're with you. We're reacting. Thank you for venting to us here on MHI, where we're reacting to Mike Shanahan getting snubbed from the Pro Football Hall of Fame today. That news literally broke as practice started, the meat and potatoes of practice. And man, Broncos country's pissed, and they should be. It's Mike Shanahan. Tom and I just talked about for a good 15 minutes the quantum leap he's made in not only the game, but you look at the business of football too. I would argue that he evolutionized the game as a general manager. He doesn't get enough credit for the type of GM that he was, truly bringing players in. It's kind of a lost art that head coaches are being separated from with front office brass. Yeah. But what's familiar and what feels good is Sean Payton, right? Kind of get those vibes a little bit. And I like George Payton, nice enough guy. Don't know if he's the long-term answer. I can tell you this definitively. Sean Payton will be here longer than George. And that's because he also understands the level of GM responsibilities. So that's not to say he wants to be the GM like Mike was, but I'm with you, Derek. So is Tom. What's Mike got to do to get in the Hall? I mean, I'm scratching my head. Now, Thomas has given us some good news, Derek. If Randy Gradishar gets in, then that should make us feel a little bit better, because I saw Randy out at training camp just 2 days ago. He was the featured alumni, and he was the most popular Bronco that's come back to camp, if I'm being honest. I've seen the lines out there every day. I think Ryan Harris was out there today, right? Great line, Super Bowl 50 champ. However, there is only one sack master. That is Randy Gradishar. So, Derek, maybe Randy getting in gives us a little bit of relief, and we can finally celebrate Gradishar in Canton.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's going to be pissed off, it's if Randy Gradishar. I mean, that is time to get the pitchforks.
What are you going to do, Tom? Because I'm gonna say it right now. I don't think he's going to get in. And that's not because he doesn't deserve it. No, of course not. I don't think so. I didn't think Mike was going to get in. That's just, I've accepted it, Tom. It is what it is. And I hear what you're saying, because you are bringing factual based evidence into play when you say, look, man, Luke, it hasn't been as bad as you're making it to be. You look at the last few years, 5 to 6 guys have gotten in, and you're exactly right. But when have they gotten in? They've gotten in at the wrong time, just like you've lamented about Bill Cowher getting in at the wrong time. I mean, DeMarcus Ware, he can get in before Randy Gradishar? Like, come on, man. There's something funky with that picture.
Well, I'll tell you, the senior class has been tough to get in. Randy Gradishar should have been in back, right after like Jack Lambert and those guys got in, because he was that good. That's the bone to pick, is they were ignored Denver Broncos for a long time, and it's pushed many of them into the backlog, so to speak. That's the problem. But Randy Gradishar, I think if you look at last year's vote, 3 people got in, 3 senior candidates got in. Randy Gradishar was the next one in line. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to get in. That there's no queue, there's no anything like that, but he had enough. He was like number 4 really in the voting, so to speak, 4 to 6, somewhere in there. So he has a good shot. I would be surprised to not see him get in this year. And I'm telling you, it's not just Denver Broncos fans out there. I'm in tune with a lot of the Hall of Fame people, a lot of the historians, a lot of other fan bases are saying that Randy Gradishar is the biggest snub right now. If he doesn't get in, it's not just Broncos fans that are pissed. there are historians that are going to be like, what the hell's going on with this Hall of Fame selection process? There's going to be people from other fan bases that are going to be saying, what the hell's wrong with the selection process? It is his time. And if he doesn't get in, it is probably it is a huge, you think about the travesty of the guy, the Green Bay Packer, and I'm drawing a blank on he was back from the 60s, a guard that didn't get in for a long time, finally get in. That was like the last tragedy. Now it's Randy Gradishar. It is time for him to get in. I think he does. And I'm going to knock on wood right now because I don't want to jinx it, but there's so much pressure right now. There's so much buzz and so everywhere coming into these selectors that they can't overlook it this year. They just can't. They've got to put the past behind them and say, look at what Gradishar did. He's the only, people have looked at it. He's the only the Broncos are the only Super Bowl representative that is eligible for the Hall of Fame that isn't in. There's no player from the 1977 Super Bowl in the Hall of Fame. Everybody else, all the other eligible teams that have been in the Super Bowl aren't in. And he's the only there's no member of that iconic defense where all the other iconic defenses, the Steel Curtain, the Monsters of the Midway, the Doomsday, they all have somebody in. Yeah, they all have somebody in. The Orange Crush does it. And it's not a flash in the pan. The Denver Broncos defense from 75 to, late 70s, they had a defense by many metrics that were still in the top 3 and top 5. It's not a flash in the pan defense. This was a solid, excellent defense, and they're not representative. And I think it changes. I think it changes next week. I think you'll hear Gradishar's name called. And if not, I am going to be beside myself.
What are you gonna do, Tom? I need
specifics. Know.
What are you gonna break? Who are you gonna write? Someone's gonna get a strongly worded letter.
That's
after that move. No, I'm frustrated, just like the rest of Broncos country, and Gina Cooper weighing in here saying, look, the Hall of Fame just makes you shake your head. And Gina, I completely agree with you, and I couldn't agree more. Actually, dare I say, I have beef with the Hall of Fame in general. I can't stand the time of year they do this stuff either, because I feel like it's one of the reasons I don't think Randy Gradishar is going to get in. He didn't get in last year, and then what happens? 2 weeks comes and goes, the regular season's here, and not everybody, Tom, I know you're not everybody, but people kind of forget, right? And they're kind of, oh, well, it's a new season, let's maybe next year kind of a thing. I hate it. That should be going on during the off season because it deserves our utmost attention. Maybe these guys would get a little bit more momentum coming into the winter. And I know it's draft coverage and everything, free agency and all those sorts of things, but it's just super frustrating when I hear those facts. Like, I did not know until you told us on these airwaves tonight, Tom, and maybe it's just me being ignorant, that the jacket stayed in Canton. It didn't go with the family if the family received it, so to speak. I didn't know that, and a lot of Broncos country's weighing in on that, saying, damn, that's kind of jacked up. But it is what it is. Canton and the Pro Football Hall of Fame, they're closely associated with the NFL, right, Tom? But they're not quite together. It's kind of an independent thing. It's its own entity, really, right? I mean, out of Canton. Am I hitting the mark on that one? Because I scratch my head. It's unfamiliar. It makes me grouchy. I don't know how to feel about the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'm pumped when my guys get in, and I hate it when my guys don't.
Yeah, no, they're separate entities, but I'm going to give a shout out to Colby for coming in with some Facebook stars. Really, really appreciate that.
Thank you.
We also have George Fox with some Facebook stars with the support. I'll get to your question here because I'm a big Dan Reeves guy.
Dan Reeves.
Just think about it this way. In 2017, Terrell Davis went into the Hall of Fame. And then in 2019, we got Bolin and Bailey. And then in 2020, we got Steve Atwater. And if we get Randy Gradishar,
too late on Bolin, too late on Atwater. I'm not giving credit.
It's too late, but what I'm saying is the Hall of Fame, if you think about it that way, the Hall of Fame is warming up to Denver Broncos in the Hall of Fame. That's what I'm saying. In the past, you have a beef, but you don't have a beef now. The modern
is it because the voters are dying, or what's the
changing
of the guard on that, Tom? Because you're exactly right.
What I think it is really is fans are getting smarter about using social media the right way to keep these names in front of the voters, right? Because in the past, they never watched them. Really, I mean, you're in New York, you're not watching the Denver Broncos playing on Sunday in 1978, 79 for the most part, or 82. You're watching the New York Jets or the Giants. They're in your area. But you have more ability to watch games, and you have social media where fans, and this is the key. Don't be jerks. Don't be assholes. Sorry for my language. Don't go and like start tweeting the Hall of Fame voters and telling them they're, give them the what for or whatever,
Wait a second.
But keep the names in front of these voters. Keep the names in front of them. Keep the people that you want in the forefront, because that influences people. The human nature. The more you see something, the more you start to recognize it. That's why they play a song on the radio 1 billion times when it first comes out, because it gets in people's heads. They start thinking of it, and then it becomes a hit. So remember, do it respectfully, but keep the names out in front of them. But I'll tell you this, Mike Shanahan has a little bit better resume than Dan Reeves, but Dan Reeves has a Hall of Fame resume. He was until Belichick and Brady came along, he was the person that was in the most Super Bowls of all time, 9. Took the Broncos to 3, took the Falcons, the Falcons, who'd never been anywhere, done anything, got them to the Super Bowl. I think Dan Reeves has a Hall of Fame. You can go check out my articles about Dan Reeves, Mike Shanahan, the top 15 Broncos who deserve to be in the Hall of Fame on milehighhuddle.com. I lay out a case for Dan Reeves as well. I think he's deserving. Unfortunately, he's passed on, and like I said, the family's not going to get a gold jacket when he gets in.
And that's the shame of the whole thing. I mean, like these guys, and I know some of them, right? So I don't want to step on some toes and stuff like that, but man, I'm gonna tell you, you might want to fire out a feisty tweet when Randy doesn't make it. I mean, like, it's because those guys are doing an injustice. And look, we're all imperfect, right? That's humanity. And in the grand scheme of things, we're talking about the Pro Football Hall of Fame. No one's getting hurt, no one's getting injured, right? So definitely, I don't like opening hate mail any more than you do, Tom, on Twitter, Facebook, or anything else. We all get it. But no, that's a good point. I mean, look, there's a human element to this whole thing, and that whether that be reaction, voting, and I think you hit on something that encourages me. The one positive about social media, it's getting some of these ghosts, if you will, to young guys and young gals, the casual football team. It's getting those ghosts out of being just that. They weren't ghosts. They're actually legends. And if you go back, there's a lot we can learn from some of these legends, especially when you look at how those things were implemented in the 2023 offense. Michael Ronquillo coming in again, man. He started off hot. He's making sure we close hot. Great show tonight, Thomas and Luke on the Mile High Insiders. Go Broncos and buck 'em. And Keith, I wanted to get our guy real quick, man. Keith's our guy. We got to hang out with him over at training camp. I'm so proud of him. Keith's doing a really bang-up job over on the RMSN network. You'll have to check out some of Keith's work. I absolutely love to plug that. Good job, buddy. Keep it going. Yeah. How many of Mike Shanahan's players are in the Hall, but homeboy can't get in? That's what I'm saying, Keith. Like Terrell Davis, John Elway, Shannon Sharp. Who am I missing?
Gary Zimmerman.
Yep,
Steve
I was just gonna say
Champ Bailey. There's a lot of them.
Champ, right? I forgot all about that. He brought Champ to the Broncos. Without Mike, there is no Champ Bailey with the Denver Broncos and some of those players. So, Keith, you're exactly right, man. Keep plugging away, dude. Absolutely, so pumped to see what you're doing. And Broncos country, man, you guys came in hot, fast, and furious. We've been reacting to Mike Shanahan getting that snub. Our fingers are still crossed for Randy Gradishar right now, and that would be really, really special, because it was special to me to see how much that this fan base loves Randy when he was out at camp a couple of days ago. I actually felt bad, Tom, because I should have known he was going to be there, because I would have stood in that line for you, bro, and tried to get some sort of insignia, because you have been campaigning, deservingly so, for Randy Gradishar. Some of these lesser known, I'm using with air quotes for national media, lesser known Denver Broncos legends. I mean, these guys have got to come to the forefront, like you're saying, and you've been a huge champion of that cause, man. So when I see all those folks lined up there at Randy Gradishar's tent, I'm definitely thinking of Thomas Hall on the Legends of Mile High podcast every Friday morning, where Ken Lanier's former Broncos right tackle, arguably the best right tackle in franchise history, it's going to be rapping with Thomas. Anything from what it was like playing in the good old days of football, two-a-days, what training camp used to mean, versus how do we fix this current offensive line? You guys do not want to miss that. That's going to be Friday morning on these very airwaves. And then if you didn't get enough Thomas, he's coming right back at you with Ron White for a special pregame coverage of Orange and Blue View at 5:30 p.m. Mountain on Saturday night.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. And the nice thing, I mean, I'm looking forward to talking with Ken Lanier. Super nice guy, very knowledgeable. He played in the league for 13 or 14 years. He did play for a little while for the Raiders, so 1 year for the Raiders, but you can't fault him on that. But I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to Saturday night because that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing the pregame shows because we're the night before the game the next day. We're going to be bringing you pregame shows, and we're going to be bringing you really good information, right? We're not just going to yuck it up like the guys on NFL Today or whatever. We're going to bring you valuable information that you're going to be able to look and see what is happening on the field, right? Some good, valuable information that will get you prepped for the games. We're going to be launching it tomorrow or Saturday, so it's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. Be sure to check out Thomas Hall on Twitter at Thomas Hall NFL. Yours truly at Luke Patterson LP. Thomas and I both have a couple of articles headlining milehighhuddle.com. Please check it out. If you'd like to read about Mike Shanahan's snub, Thomas has a piece up right now. Again, milehighhuddle.com. You can read my training camp journal for the day where I talked about Quinn Minor's role, Kareem Jackson coming back into the starting lineup, and much more. Tomorrow will be the final day of training camp open to the public. I hope to see a lot of you folks out there. Come say hello. It's been an absolute blast. And then you can catch me on the airwaves tomorrow night on 104.3 The Fan for Denver Sports Tonight. I will be co-hosting 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Happy to get some reps with those fellas. Broncos country.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal, man.
Huge.
That's going to be awesome. Yeah, check it out. Tune in, man. I listened to your last one. You were on with Cecil. It was awesome. It was a great job.
Thanks, brother. No, I appreciate that. That's why we are MHI, because we are constantly trying to get these ideas out there. I told you big special things were coming this season. Maybe y'all just didn't believe us. I mean, we're getting Thomas Hall is getting Justin Simmons on twice in 2 years. He's getting Ken Lanier's on. He's had Carl Mecklenburg on. Your boy's been hosting some primetime radio here in Denver. I mean, you just never know where MHI is going to be headed. And Colby Collier coming in. Hall of Fame Buckham shirt? Sounds good to me. You could at Chad Jensen MHH on that one. I have no plug for that. If you guys do want some gear, like the hats that we're wearing, you could head on over to mhhmerch.com, get your swag on. The Huddle Up Boys are going to be back tomorrow night on Thursday, and I'm sure Broncos for breakfast, they rock like Thursday and Thursday-ish, and then Legends of Mile High Friday, pregame show Saturday. Broncos country, stay tuned and locked on to Mile High Huddle. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for a happening show. Remember, this is the way.
This is the way.